others just get thoroughly overexcited. But what all our reunions have in common are strong bonds that can last over years. We're going to meet some extraordinary people and some equally special animals. Trust is the basis for all relationships, and it's no different for animals. To trust again once you've been hurt takes a lot. But that's what animals have to learn to do all the time. Rhinos are one of the most endangered creatures on the planet. Although many are heavily protected, poachers still killed over 1,000 last year in South Africa alone. But amidst this tragedy, there are people here dedicating their lives to saving these gentle giants. And one of them is English veterinary nurse Alison McPhee.
I came out to South Africa to do a 2-month volunteer placement. I just fell in love and the rest is history.
2 months led to 6 years, all because of these rhinos. Tombi and Tabo.
I just couldn't leave them. I couldn't think about leaving them, so I decided to stay.
Alison raised these 2 orphaned rhinos from babies and spent every day watching over them. But eventually, they were big enough to go it alone and were released into a protected reserve.
As much as I was looking forward to seeing them grow and in the wild, which is where they should be, it was a lot harder than I ever anticipated. I really missed them. It was so weird. It's like empty nest syndrome with rhino.
Alison hardly ever gets to see the rhinos now she's moved across the country, so every visit is precious.
Because of the poaching in the area, I'm always anxious and worried for their safety. So I need to see them in person to make sure that they're okay.
She's aware that every trip could be the last time she sees them. Guards watch the rhinos 24 hours a day, but they're still at risk. And all over the country, the poaching crisis is leaving more baby rhinos without their mothers. A day's drive away is the Rhino Revolution Orphanage.
Hello, babies.
Where they've taken in 4 babies in the last year alone.
Hello, are you coming?
Fellow Brit, Jade Aldridge, is surrogate mum to them.
No problem.
Just as Alison was.
Oh, that's a big one.
The 2 girls and 2 boys range in age from 5 to 10 months. They seem pretty relaxed at the moment, but when they arrived, it was a different story.
100% the toughest part is when they come in. I wish that we didn't have to do what we do.
If a baby is found on its own, the orphanage rushes to the rescue. The young rhinos arrive traumatised by what they've been through.
When they first arrive at the facility, then they are with us 24/7. So we eat with them, we sleep with them, we have to be in the same area as them.
It's incredible that they can learn to trust people again, but the bond that forms during this time replaces what the baby had with its real mother.
You can see when they're scared and they kind of twist their little tails and their ears prick up. And if you're relaxed, and they're relaxed. I guess it's like having a child. You can kind of tell what's wrong with them to an extent.
A group of rhinos is called a crash. And once a new baby rhino is well enough, it's introduced to other youngsters. But Jade's still on hand to sort out any squabbles.
Ubuntu, don't do that to her. Horrible.
Definitely, I think the best is when they pull through and they start getting a personality and they start running round after you and you can see that they're happy again.
Ubuntu.
Every day is different. Every day they've got different things that they do and I just enjoy watching them.
You guys.
Every day with them is special.
Be nice, my boy, because you're covered in mud.
With most of the rhinos already weighing over 400 kilograms, getting close to them can be an occupational hazard.
We're not going to fit. No, Quinton, we're not going to fit.
Our babies are very spoiled. They're very cheeky, so they know that if they come over and they want affection, they know really how to get it.
So he wants to stroke under his chin.
They stand there and they put their leg out and they want this bit scratched, and they move their body down and they want their neck scratched. And then they lay on their side and they want their belly rubbed, so
Yeah.
they manipulate you. They know what they want and they always get it.
Their favourite time is feeding time. These big babies drink 5 litres of milk.
Hello.
5 times a day.
Oh, is it delicious?
The milk takes a few seconds to hit their stomachs, so they cry noisily until they realise they're full. Jade calls it milk rage. The rhinos put on 1 to 2 kilograms a day.
You got big. 376 kilos.
In the wild, they'll stay with their mums for at least 3 years, so it'll be a while yet before she has to say goodbye.
Obviously, I have these bonds with these rhino and I love them to death, but my main aim is to keep them as natural as possible and to try and get them into a wild environment.
But even if you spend years successfully raising them to go back to the wild, it doesn't mean they'll be safe. Something Alison McPhee knows all too well. She spent 6 years of her life raising 2 orphaned rhinos, and although she's moved away, she worries about them constantly. Park ranger Promise Jamini keeps her updated on their progress and is taking her to visit them.
Long time no see.
Yeah.
I don't get to see them very often. I almost get butterflies with excitement. So excited to see them. No, get me to the babies.
But this time is different. Alison's beloved rhinos have grown large enough to be at risk from poachers. Their highly prized horns are used in traditional Chinese medicine and can be worth up to £65,000 a kilogram. In an attempt to keep them safe, a vet will soon remove their horns.
I wanted to see them kind of like a last time with their fully grown horns. Sad but necessary thing to do.
Wild rhinos can be unpredictable beasts. Weighing up to 2 tons, they can do some serious damage. And even though Alison has a history with these 2, they could unintentionally hurt her.
Yeah, they're huge now. They almost like get me a little bit nervous.
She'll have to stay in the safety of the truck.
Baby. Hello, my loves. Hello. Hello, babies. Come. Hello, Taba boy.
Seems to be missing Mum.
Hey. Hey, you've forgotten about me already?
The rhinos can hear and smell Alison,
That's the wrong side.
but they've such bad eyesight, they're having trouble working out how to get to her.
Hello, gorgeous.
Tabo, come round this side.
No, my boy.
He's trying to reach you.
Boy, he is trying to reach me.
I know.
Okay.
I know.
Okay. Too much love. We're gonna have to move. We're gonna have to move.
Oh!
The rhinos are getting overexcited in their eagerness to reach Alison,
Tabo,
and she's worried about them hurting themselves.
come on, boy.
Just as she's about to leave, Tabo finally figures out where she is, and there's time for one quick rhino kiss.
Oh! You're getting big. Yes, we love you, but you're getting big. Look at Tommy.
visit was brief but emotional.
They can be big, they can be as wild as they are, but they'll always be my babies.
When you spend so much time with an animal, it's hard not to become emotionally involved. And letting go can be tough. Joe Hutto is a researcher and writer who's always been fascinated by animals. He befriends them and lives alongside them in a totally unique way. In 2006, he moved to a ranch in Wyoming, a vast state home to mountain lions and rattlesnakes. But Joe was only interested in the herd of wild mule deer living on his doorstep. He made it his mission to get up close and learn as much as possible about them.
Initially, these deer were very suspicious of me, like they would be anyone.
Deer are found on every continent except Antarctica. And one thing they all have in common is their shy and skittish behaviour. Joe stalked the deer every day, in every weather. And over a vast area. It took 2 years of this routine until he had a breakthrough.
Finally, I think I just wore them down by spending so much time in their company. And after a while, out of desperation, they started to ignore me.
The deer had got used to Joe hanging around, and eventually his patience paid off when one curious doe approached him. He named her Raggedy Ann, and she changed everything.
You know, you can't force a relationship on a wild creature. You have to always let them make that decision.
Her acceptance was a turning point for Joe. Raggedy Ann was the matriarch of the clan, so where she led, others followed. Joe got to know over 200 individual deer, and he named them all.
Hey, look here. Blossom. Come here, Blossom. Then as time went on, I developed that sort of relationship with more and more and more deer.
Deer only groom their closest family members, and when they started to groom Joe, it meant he'd been accepted as one of them.
It's phenomenal, and it's actually quite an honor to be included like that.
And like a doting grandfather, they'd even bring their babies to see him. Every year, the deer would set off on their annual migration, leaving Joe behind waiting and wondering who would return and when. Joe had set out to study and write about these deer, but he was finding it hard not to get too attached.
This experience has been the story of my life, that I get emotionally entangled with these animals. If you choose to become actually involved in these animals' lives, you're going to get your heart broken.
And that's exactly what happened. Joe Hutto spent nearly a decade of his life getting to know over 200 wild mule deer. But when his wife, Leslie, tragically passed away, he couldn't bear to stay in the house that they'd shared. So he moved across the country to Florida. After a year away, his old home has now been sold, and Joe's come back to see the deer for one final visit.
This is a pretty emotional time for me. I lived with this herd of deer for 9 consecutive years, and we were very close, like family. I'm sort of saying farewell to these animals for the last time. And so, yes, this is a reunion, but it's also going to be a farewell.
The mule deer are free to roam over hundreds of miles, and he's worried that not all of his friends may have survived the winter.
It'll be real interesting to see how many deer are still here. And I've never been away this long, and so what will that reaction be? I don't know.
There are 2 deer Joe's especially hoping to see today. One is Blossom, who is known for 8 years.
Blossom was always more inclined to be near me, spend time with me. If I departed from the herd, Blossom would depart with me. She would choose to actually go with me.
And the other is Molly, whose mum died when she was just a few days old.
Hi, baby.
She spent days searching frantically for her.
It's kind of pitiful to watch.
Joe helped keep Molly alive.
There she is.
But it was Blossom, an orphan herself, who stepped in as foster mum, and she's been looking out for Molly ever since. Joe walks for hours searching for the 2 deer. And while there are some familiar faces around, no sign of Blossom or Molly.
I had not seen Blossom when we first arrived, and of course I was immediately concerned.
Starting to fear the worst, Joe reluctantly heads back to the ranch, only to discover Blossom, who's been waiting there for him.
Blossom. Is that Blossom? Hey, sweetie. Hey, sweetie. I haven't seen you in a long time. You come say hi to me. Hey, sweetie. Hey, sweet girl. I've missed you. I've missed this girl. We had a nice moment. We're pals. We're friends. Hey, sweetie.
And the little fawn who lost her mum is not far behind.
It's Molly. You remember me, don't you? Yes, you do.
And she's all grown up.
It's Molly. So glad to see you. You're a funny girl. Let's go.
To Joe's relief, both deer look healthy, and reunited once more, they enjoy their last day together. And it seems absence has definitely made the heart grow fonder.
There, we haven't done this in a long time, have we? 9 years of my life I spent with these deer. A good investment, I think. Blossom thinks so. Just amazing to know this kind of trust in another creature. It just doesn't, it just doesn't happen very often in life.
It's been a tough couple of years for Joe, saying goodbye to his wife, his home, and the deer, who were all part of his life.
It's hard knowing I'm gonna have to leave them again, and for good. Okay, Blossom. I'm gonna leave you alone. I'm gonna leave you alone. My loss will be much greater than theirs.
Whether it's hundreds of animals or just one, it seems that special bonds can form with the most unlikely of creatures. Our planet is full of weird and wonderful animals. And they don't come much more unusual looking than this.
Hey, pig.
Maria Diekman runs a wildlife rescue centre in Namibia and is totally nuts about all types of animals.
See you later.
But her passion is reserved for these armoured aliens.
Everything's special about pangolins. It's the only mammal with scales. It's probably one of the oldest living survivors from the dinosaur era. And we know virtually nothing worldwide about this animal.
Maria is one of only a handful of people who have been successful in rehabilitating and releasing pangolins. They're extremely difficult to keep in captivity, as they get easily stressed and won't eat.
Come, honey bun.
When a baby pangolin arrives, Maria has to take on the mother role, and as any mum knows, babies can be pretty demanding.
It's probably worse than having a newborn. When a little baby pangolin comes in, you're awake every single hour.
And as they grow up, Maria's there with them every step of the way, helping them hunt for ants and keeping them safe. When they feel threatened, they curl up in a ball. Their tough scales act as armour, even protecting them from lions and baby warthogs.
Pika, quit scaring my love frog.
Pangolins are the most illegally trafficked animal in the world. They're eaten as a delicacy and used in Chinese medicine. 4 years ago, Maria rescued a particularly special one from the black market.
So this is Roxy the pangolin, who for whatever reason is feeling attached to me.
She immediately came out of the box and came up to me, which is incredibly rare for a pangolin.
I simply can't believe this is happening. This is one of those once-in-a-lifetime experiences.
Pangolins generally don't bond with people, so this was highly unusual. Maria planned to fit her with a transmitter and release her as soon as possible. But Roxy had other ideas.
Well, the plan went a little loopy when at day 2 I walked in and she had just given birth.
This was the first time a pangolin birth had ever been filmed. Maria named the baby boy Katiti, which means little one in the Herero language. But not long after the birth, the call of the wild became too strong for Roxy. One night, Maria left her out foraging for ants.
And I will always remember exactly the bush that I put her down at, and remembered watching her walk away. It was the last time I ever saw her.
This disappearing act was to become a family trait. Roxy had left behind baby Katiti, and now it was all down to Maria.
I think with any pangolin that comes in, trust is actually the most important factor.
Katiti soon learned that he could trust Maria, and she became his surrogate mum. And he was teaching her new things about pangolins all the time. Every day she, or a researcher, would follow Katiti, building up information about how they behave in the wild.
Katiti probably taught the world more about pangolins than any pangolin to date.
But when the batteries in his transmitter suddenly died, Maria had no way of tracking him. And just like his mum, Katiti vanished into the wilderness.
When I heard Katiti was missing, devastation. The reason that it hit me so hard, and it still hits me so hard, I think I prepared Katiti for the wild. I spent 3.5 years preparing that animal to go back out into the wild. but I can't monitor him. If I'd had a transmitter on him, I'd know that he was safe. You know, we've lost amazing research, and I lost my friend.
It's been 5 months since Katiti disappeared, and desperate to find him, Maria's offered a reward for his safe return. She's already followed up several false leads, but fresh pangolin tracks have been reported.
I'm feeling really anxious. Yeah, I'm feeling hopeful, but I'm trying to be really careful that I don't get too hopeful and excited and then disappointed.
Maria's connection to this special pangolin has only strengthened in his absence. But what about Katiti?
The minute I see Katiti, the bond is going to be there again. I know it. I know it in my heart. I know it in my soul.
But not all stories can have a happy ending. She starts searching in the area where the recent tracks were seen. Pangolins leave a triangular digging pattern, which only an expert eye would see.
We've definitely got fresh pangolin spoor. We've got a pangolin maybe a little bit younger than Katiti or Katiti, and it's fresh within 24 hours.
The pangolin tracks lead her to a large burrow, which could also be hiding dangerous snakes.
Katiti, if you're there, wake up. I would just rather find you and not a mamba. Baby? Katiti, are you sleeping? Hey, my baby. Katiti, are you deep in there?
But there's no sight or sound of him.
I'm a little bit frustrated. There's a good chance still that he's around here somewhere. I'm just not finding him.
But maybe Katiti doesn't need to be found. Maria prepared him for 3 years to live on his own in the wild, and so he should be doing just fine without her.
I have to find Katiti again. Almost more for myself than for Katiti. I have to know that he's safe. I have to know that I succeeded in training him to live in the wild, and then I'm happy to let him go again.
It's hard to walk away. Maria's determined to keep on searching. But for today, the trail's gone cold. Will she find Katiti? I really hope so. There seems to be no end to the dedication and commitment people show when it comes to their animals. Coming up, one woman gets up close and personal with a pack of wolves, and we see a remarkable bond form between man and bird. Personalities. We all have them, but do animals? Curious, chilled out, and cheeky. The people that bring them up certainly think they do, as just like human children, they can see them developing in front of their eyes. Wolves are the ancestors of all our pet dogs, although sometimes that's hard to believe. They may look fierce, but this woman knows all about their true characters. And 6 years ago, the world got a glimpse of her amazing relationship with them. This reunion clip was watched by over 9 million people.
With that kind of response, you can't be anything but happy, and you just enjoy every minute of it. They're eager to see you and say hello to you, and they even fought over getting to say hello to me.
Anita Hansen was training to be a zookeeper when she came to Polar Park in Norway on a work placement. It houses animals in some of the largest natural enclosures in the world, and contains native species such as lynx, bear and Arctic fox. And when Anita first arrived, she was literally thrown to the wolves.
When you're raising wolf puppies, it's the best thing in the world and the hardest job you can get.
The cubs completely took over Anita's life. She spent 24 hours a day with them, feeding them, cleaning them, even burping them, just like human babies. And the similarities didn't end there.
So you just need to be good at not getting your sleep. And of course, you're gonna have your hands dirty.
And teething can be a little more unpredictable.
They want to chew on everything when they are youngsters. And you need to teach them that they are not allowed to chew on everyone and everything.
But licking was allowed, as this is how young wolves ask for food from their parents. Anita was nothing if not dedicated. Following this, Anita helped raise another 2 wolf packs, until in 2014 she became pregnant with her second child. The wolves could sense the new life growing within her and became curious.
When I had a bit of a bump, they started to be quite interested, just nibbling it. So I decided I would protect my belly and stop going into the enclosure.
Anita had a baby girl and is now starting to think about going back to work. 9 months have passed since she last saw the wolves, and she's nervous they might not remember her. But she's got nothing to worry about. And just like her previous pack, they welcome Anita back with open mouths. The face licking, whimpering and belly showing are all submissive behaviours. Anita is top dog, and they've not forgotten it.
It's always nice to return and get lots of kisses. I can feel my lips are quite used right now. Lots of kisses and joyful to see them again.
And they seem pretty pleased to see Anita too.
It's a great job. You can sit and cuddle with wolves. What's not to like?
When we think of animals we might describe as being intelligent or emotional, birds wouldn't be the first to spring to mind. But sometimes our feathered friends can surprise us. Every year in Brazil, one bird undertakes a journey to visit his old friend. His name is Jinjin, and he's a wild Magellanic penguin. These penguins normally spend the majority of the year at their breeding grounds much further south. So Jinjin would strayed a little off course. Senor Zhao considers him one of the family.
Eu tenho amor muito grande por ele, igual como que eu tenho com a criança. Do mesmo jeito ele tem comigo.
This unusual relationship began 4 years ago, when the retired bricklayer found the sickly-looking penguin lying on the beach where he lives.
Deitado lá. Não falava, não se bolia, nada.
Zhao took pity on the little penguin and moved him under the shade of a tree.
Eu digo, ele deve estar com fome e sede. Eu vou dar uma sardinha para ele.
With Zhao's help, the penguin soon perked up, and a beautiful friendship was born.
I'm the one for you and you're for me. I'm happy as a monkey in a tree.
Ele chegou em março, ficou quase uns 11 meses comigo aí.
If I'm feeling blue, I just take one look at you.
They spent their days together, swimming.
Ele adora tomar banho de mar comigo. Ele não me larga.
Walking.
When we're out walking, I feel just like a king.
And watching TV.
We're two birds of a feather, we gotta stick together.
Boy, where's my cuppa? And on a really hot day, there's nothing Jinjin likes more than keeping cool.
Adoro chuveiro.
Zhao was the only human Jinjin would let close.
We're two birds of a feather, we gotta stick together, you and me forever.
After 11 months, living side by side, Jinjin went for a swim and didn't come back. He'd never done this before, and Zhao wasn't sure if he'd ever see him again.
Mas daí todo mundo diz, ai não, mas ele não volta mais não, não volta. Eu digo, bom, não sei. Aí quem sabe é a vontade dele lá.
No one knows exactly where Jinjin went. But 4 months to the day, he was back, and Zhao was overjoyed.
Aí cheguei, você resolveu voltar, né? Você não se esqueceu de mim não, né?
Zhao took the penguin home with him and fed him his favourite fishy meal of sardines. And it was like they'd never been apart. Magellanic penguins are incredibly loyal partners. They meet up at the same place with the same mate every year, and Jinjin was no exception. After another 8 months together, Jinjin left for a second time, but Zhao wasn't worried.
Eu digo, agora que ele vai voltar, porque a primeira vez que eu pensei que ele não ia voltar, ele voltou.
He was right. So far, Jinjin has come back to this small beach to see Zhao every year for the last 3 years in a row. Let's hope this perfect pair keep on reuniting for many more years to come. Some animals spend nearly their whole life on their own. But others are social creatures that live and hunt together, like lions. They're known as ferocious predators. But Herbert Brauer's experience of them couldn't have been more different. Zambia is a safari lover's paradise and is one of the best places in Africa to see hippos, leopards and wild dogs. But in the 1990s, mass poaching and illegal trophy hunting wiped out thousands of animals. All the lions in Lua National Park were killed, except for one solitary female.
And that was Lady Lua.
With a near mythological status, Lady Lua was rarely seen. Herbert had heard of her, but didn't dream he'd be lucky enough to catch sight of her.
The first time I saw Lady was on the very first day of my first assignment in my career as a wildlife cameraman. She was hunting, and we saw her at a distance.
Lions are the only true social cat, hardwired to live and hunt in family prides.
They can exist on their own, they can hunt on their own highly effectively, but just watch the lions in the pride, how social they are, how they play with each other, how they greet each other after a hunt.
After 5 years on her own, Lady Lua had learnt to fend for herself. But when Herbert arrived, he could see how lonely she was.
She wanted to make contact with other animals. She wanted to approach wildebeest, not for hunting, but just for actually to have company. And when I then arrived there, she looked for company with humans.
Their natural instincts meant all of the wildlife would run away from the lioness. Herbert and his crew were the only ones who stood their ground, and soon Lady started to show more than a passing interest.
We realized that she was approaching us, and she wanted to become part of our pride.
And then she did something extraordinary for a wild lion. Something that you've probably seen your pet cat do many times.
After weeks of filming, she approached us and she rolled over, exposed her belly towards me. In cat language, that obviously means, you know, I trust you, because I'm not in the best position here to defend myself. This situation was incredibly unique.
From then on, Lady would always come and greet Herbert with a roll when he was out filming, even if he'd been away for months.
This made me really feel special and humble at the same time.
A bond like this with a wild predator is highly unusual, and what happened next showed just how much she was craving company. She started following Herbert back to his camp.
On the one hand, I was excited. On the other hand, I was also extremely cautious.
Wild lions only tend to come this close to humans for one reason. But she wasn't there to hunt. She wanted to get closer and closer.
There were times where she walked in front of my tent, back and forth, trying to get into my tent. She actually pushed against the door, trying to get in. She wanted to have company.
Although Herbert trusted that the lioness wouldn't hurt him, he was always careful not to encourage her.
Lady is an absolutely wild predator.
Herbert knew he was experiencing something totally unique. But then, in her desire for affection, Lady started to get a little too close for comfort.
I knew something had to change when she started changing her behavior. She scratched the trees. She even destroyed the seat of the Land Cruiser. And I realized I could never be the mate she was looking for. She really needed a companion of her own kind. That bond made me feel very special. But at the same time, it also was incredibly tragic, because there were no other lions that she could bond with. She was really lonely.
But where does a lion find love? Africa Parks decided to play Cupid and introduced 2 male lions in the hope one of them would make a match with Lady. When the lions were introduced, Herbert moved from the camp where Lady regularly visited to one several kilometers away. He didn't want to distract her.
The interesting thing is she only came once to visit us. She did not hang around, she did not linger around, she had far better things to do.
The matchmaking had been a success, and the flirtatious feline was no longer seeking out Herbert, but rolling for one of her own kind.
This bond that I had with Lady was really special. It stretched my emotions to the extremes. A moment of happiness to an emotion of utter sadness within minutes. I'm really pleased that she has bonded with the reintroduced lions, and that she has formed a pride with them, and that she can live a way of life that she did not do for many years.
Ah, I do like a happy ending. We've seen some amazing reunions between humans and wild animals, and relationships that will last a lifetime.
If and when I find Katiti again, I'm going to be the happiest woman in the world.
Animals form bonds with humans for all sorts of reasons. Out of trust.
It's really quite touching how they can come back round and trust us after our race has done something like that to them.
Oh, my boy.
It's amazing to know this kind of
but they all form due to the kindness and commitment of the people dedicating their lives to saving and studying wild animals. But the bond that forms during this time replaces what the baby had with its real mother.
You can see when they're scared and they kind of twist their little tails and their ears prick up. And if you're relaxing, they're relaxed. I guess it's like having a child. You can kind of tell what's wrong with them to an extent.
A group of rhinos is called a crash. And once a new baby rhino is well enough, it's introduced to other youngsters. But Jade's still on hand to sort out any squabbles.
Ubuntu, don't do that to her. Horrible.
Definitely, I think the best is when they pull through and they start getting a personality and they start running round after you and you can see that they're happy again.
Ubuntu.
Every day is different. Every day they've got different things that they do and I just enjoy watching them.
You guys.
Every day with them is special.
Be nice, my boy, because you're covered in mud.
With most of the rhinos already weighing over 400 kilograms, getting close to them can be an occupational hazard.
We're not going to fit. No, Ubuntu, we're not going to fit.
Our babies are very spoiled. They're very...
Volunteer placement. I just fell in love and the rest is history.
2 months led to 6 years, all because of these rhinos. Tombi and Tabo.
I just couldn't leave them. I couldn't think about leaving them, so I decided to stay.
Alison raised these 2 orphaned rhinos from babies and spent every day watching over them. But eventually they were big enough to go it alone and were released into a protected reserve.
As much as I was looking forward to seeing them grow and in the wild, which is where they should be, it was a lot harder than I ever anticipated. I really missed them. It was so weird. It's like empty nest syndrome with rhino.
Alison hardly ever gets to see the rhinos now she's moved across the country, so every visit is precious.
Because of the poaching in the area, I'm always anxious and worried for their safety. So I need to see them in person to make sure that they're okay.
She's aware that every trip could be the last time she sees them. Guards watch the rhinos 24 hours a day, but they're still at risk. And all over the country, the poaching crisis is leaving more baby rhinos without their mothers. A day's drive away is the Rhino Revolution Orphanage.
Hello, babies.
Where they've taken in 4 babies in the last year alone.
Hello, are you coming?
Fellow Brit, Jade Aldridge, is surrogate mum to them.
No problem.
Just as Alison was.
Oh, that's a big one.
The 2 girls and 2 boys range in age from 5 to 10 months. They seem pretty relaxed at the moment, but when they arrived, it was a different story.
100% the toughest part is when they come in. I wish that we didn't have to do what we do.
If a baby is found on its own, the orphanage rushes to the rescue. The young rhinos arrive traumatised by what they've been through.
When they first arrive at the facility, then they are with us 24/7. So we eat with them, we sleep with them, we have to be in the same area as them.
It's incredible that they can learn to trust people again. Others just get thoroughly overexcited. But what all our reunions have in common are strong bonds that can last over years. We're going to meet some extraordinary people and some equally special animals. Trust is the basis for all relationships, and it's no different for animals. To trust again once you've been hurt takes a lot. But that's what animals have to learn to do all the time. Rhinos are one of the most endangered creatures on the planet. Although many are heavily protected, poachers still killed over 1,000 last year in South Africa alone. But amidst this tragedy, there are people here dedicating their lives to saving these gentle giants. And one of them is English veterinary nurse Alison McPhee.
I came out to South Africa to do a 2-month...
Cheeky, so they know that if they come over and they want affection, they know really how to get it.
So he wants to stroke under his chin.
They stand there and they put their leg out and they want this bit scratched, and they move their body down and they want their neck scratched. And then they lay on their side and they want their belly rubbed, so... yeah. They manipulate you, they know what they want and they always get it.
Their favourite time is feeding time. These big babies drink 5 litres of milk.
Hello.
5 times a day.
Oh, is it delicious?
The milk takes a few seconds to hit their stomachs, so they cry noisily until they realise they're full. Jade calls it milk rage. The rhinos put on 1 to 2 kilograms a day.
You've got big, 376 kilos.
In the wild, they'll stay with their mums for at least 3 years, so it'll be a while yet before she has to say goodbye.
Obviously I have these bonds with these rhino and I love them to death, but my main aim is to